So Max Holloway and the Korean Zombie just fought, and I think we learned a lot of valuable lessons in that fight. For one, I think it's finally safe to say blitzkrieging Max Holloway is probably not your smartest choice. Arnold Allen tried it in the last 10 seconds of their fight and he got dropped. And for whatever reason, the Korean Zombie decided to really test that theory to see how accurate it was. Because at the start of the third round, Zombie comes out, just bites down on his mouthpiece, and just goes crazy. Just starts wildly swinging punches. And he did not land a single one. And he got caught quite a few times before getting hit with a devastating knockout punch. And you know what? It's a pretty primal way to go out. He basically said either I'm getting knocked out or you're getting knocked out. The only issue is, though, I don't know if Max can get knocked out. The closest person to knocking him out was Dustin Poirier at 155, who honestly should be a welterweight with how massive he is. But, look, out of all the ways you can go out and end your career, Zombie certainly chose one of the ways you can do that. That is for sure. You can't take that away from him. Now, the only thing we're left with is a question that's been pegging us ever since Holloway versus Volkanovski 3. What on earth is Max gonna do now? He's leagues above every other contender at 145, but he can't beat Volkanovski. But you know what? Let's go back and look at Alex and Max's trilogy, because I think there's a very interesting question we need to ponder. So, the second time they fought, the far majority of people thought Max should have gotten the decision. It wasn't a robbery by any means, it was a super close fight, but a lot of people thought Max should have won. But in the third fight, Volk was basically a Japanese whaler, and Max was, I guess a whale would be the only logical way to finish that analogy, but yeah. So as many of you guys know, Max tends to stand wide in a lot of his MMA fights, and he puts a lot of weight on his front leg because he fights like a boxer. And in their first fight, Volk used this to his advantage and leg kicked the ever-living Christ out of Max. Because Max was putting so much weight on his front leg, he really couldn't check. His only strategy was to blitz in, and every time he did, he kept getting countered. But in their second fight, Holloway made some really good adjustments. Per Volkanovski himself, Muay Thai Max came out in the second fight. His stance was a lot more narrow, looking to check kicks, and this time there was no blitzing. He kept cutting off the ring, staying in front of Alex, but keeping his distance. So Volk would try to pressure him. He'd move in, head down, looking to land hooks, and Max was just waiting to counter with an uppercut. And it was working beautifully. He even dropped Volk with a clean uppercut counter on his way in. When Max did move forward, he was never ending his combinations with punches. He'd go downstairs just looking for Volk to drop his arms so he can land a head kick, which he did. Volk then switched up his game plan to wrestle more, and he was able to get the decision. So, what changed between the second and the third fight? Well, Holloway came into that third fight with the exact same strategy he had in the second fight. This was a giant issue given the fact Volk completely changed his strategy. Volk stopped blitzing, so there was no counter uppercut for Max. Instead, Volk kept stepping in with a jab and stepping in with a lead hook. Now, typically for a much shorter opponent, this strategy is not going to work. But Volkanovski's wingspan is 3 inches longer than Max's. This doesn't mean he has more reach. Your height is a lot more important than your wingspan. But the combination of Volk having really long arms for his height and with how much quicker he was than Max, this made it a nightmare for Max to land punches. You see, Max is the self-proclaimed best boxer in the UFC, but you know what a big weakness for him is? When the person he's fighting is a better boxer than him. And Volkanovski is a better boxer than Max Holloway. Those head kicks Max was setting up in the second fight, they weren't there this time because he couldn't get any kind of a rhythm going with his punches. Volk kept piecing Max up, and Max wasn't able to counter because the counters he was expecting to do were the same ones that were open in the second fight. But to think Volk wasn't going to evolve from that fight is crazy. I honestly think Max dropped the ball in that third fight. Max needed to do what he did in the second fight, which was switch up his style and catch Volk off guard. Look, Max Holloway has a ton of experience. He's got a really good team of coaches. Without a doubt, they know this. They understand this. That's why Max is still calling for another Volk fight. If they fight a fourth time, it will be a lot closer. But with that being said, I don't think Max wins. Max is a very well-rounded fighter. He can do a lot of different things, and he can certainly get some new tricks that is going to catch Volk off guard. But Volkanovski, without a doubt, next to GSP, is the most well-rounded fighter we have ever seen. And he will make adjustments mid-fight. And I think he will find a way to counter whatever Max brings to him. So what should Max do? Well, I'll tell you. There was this point in time, a few years ago, where there was this narrative kind of emerging that fighters shouldn't be cutting this much weight. A lot of guys are severely compromising themselves doing it, and they should move up. This narrative was pretty much solely being propelled by Joe Rogan. He was the main catalyst for it. But it went completely silent when Max moved up to fight Dustin Poirier for the interim lightweight title. Max was a big 145er, and he had some brutal cuts to get down to that weight. So everyone was saying, 155 is going to be where he really comes into form. Well, that could not have been further from the truth. That fight just was not fair. I'm sorry, it was not fair. Dustin was so much bigger, so much stronger. There was zero reaction when Holloway landed a punch, but pretty much anything Dustin threw was wobbling Max. Almost everything. But to be fair, Dustin is a massive lightweight, pretty much as big as you can get for that weight class. Even when he fought McGregor, he dwarfed him. Conor looked like a 45er in that fight. Because like I've said before in other videos, the skill level is getting so high, the guys at the top are so few and far in between, that if you're not cutting a massive amount of weight to give yourself that little extra size advantage, you're not going to win. You're not going to be champ. And remember, when Holloway moved up, he was still the 145-pound champion. He was trying to be simultaneous. And what's so difficult about that is you can't bulk up because you need to cut that weight back down to 45 after. Luckily for Max, though, he no longer needs to worry about that. So I say, forget 45. Say, I'm done and I'm never coming back. Pull a John Jones, take a little bit of time off, and put on some muscle. Get a decent little strength and conditioning program. Get a bit more power to your punches. Really acclimate to fighting bigger guys. So next time you move up, your chin's going to be better. Your punches are going to hurt these guys a little bit more. And who knows? Maybe you'll be elite at 155.